Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy day ending in Y, which I believe makes it Thursday today. Another minute, see who else shows up. Like Brian, perhaps. Because leaving me unsupervised is never a good idea. Rosalie learned that a long time ago.
Oh, Rosalie, do you have stories to tell?
In regards to,
No, Helen, you muted yourself.
No, I said in terms of leaving Greg unsupervised.
oh, yeah, that was my number one goal, is never to let that happen.
For sure.
All right, well, it is 10:02, which is our typical delayed start time. Decent little turnout this morning. I don't think we have a huge agenda. I just wanted to say, hopefully you may have seen on the social media, our governor did a early Hanukkah lighting with Rabbi Landa and the rest of the Chabad group and a bunch of people from Jefferson City and Columbia, because he had planned to be in Israel starting, I think, this Thursday. Today, they were going to leave today. Unfortunately, due to the Omicron variant, the trip has been postponed. But it was just great to see the governor and connect, and his support for our community is really, really fabulous. He went on just about how much going to Israel meant to him. He went on a legislator's mission with the Federation years ago, and it kept expounding on what a life-changing event that was for him. So it's just good to keep those connections fresh. And we're going to see a bunch of our local representatives today at Shine a Light on Anti-Semitism, which hopefully somebody's going to talk about, maybe. So with that, any questions for me? Otherwise, Brian, you got anything?
No, I think we have a couple of announcements or sharing pieces, and then yeah, if anything else, Mindy and Karen, I know both had something to share. Karen unmuted first, so she can talk first.
Well, I can speak to the Shine a Light on Anti-Semitism program that's happening today at 11:30 here in our building. This is a collaborative program with the JCRC, Federation, NCJW, American Jewish Committee, and ADL, Heartland. And if you have noticed on social media, hopefully we have a video that's going out every day, every night of Hanukkah, that's highlighting one of our organizations that are work to combat anti-Semitism. This is a nationwide initiative. We received a $10,000 micro grant to do our program here in St. Louis, and we're looking forward to having a group here in the building of number of elected officials and board leaders. We have a 15-minute brief presentation from student to student, and we have a video, and Greg's going to speak, and Rory's going to speak. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful day. We have lots of latkes. So if you have nowhere else to be, come join us. We're going to have lots of latkes. So that's that one on Shine a Light on Anti-Semitism. The other thing was around the Nonprofit Energy Efficiency Act, and we had a webinar yesterday with JFNA. And this is $50 million are going to be going for nonprofits for energy efficient upgrades. We don't know when. It has to be within the year that the bill was signed. So it was signed, Biden signed it, and it's going to be within the year that we're going to have more information. But basically, eligibility is any 501c3 organization, including congregations, who own and operate their own buildings. So you can't rent and do things. You have to own and operate your own building. It is not for new building, it's for existing structures. The funds can be used for energy efficiency materials, including roofs or lighting systems, windows, doors, including security doors, heating, ventilation, or air conditioning systems or components thereof, insulation, wiring, that kind of thing. Could include other things like solar panels, but that wasn't in it yet. We just don't know. The awards will be, how the awards will be, grants will be awarded. The Department of Energy is supposed to prioritize the following performance based on criteria like energy saving criteria, cost effectiveness, effective plan for evaluation and financial need of the applicants. Basically, the applications are obviously not out yet. It's going to take a little while. There's 50 million total. You can apply for up to $200,000 per applicant. So it kind of gives you a sense that there could be as few as 250 grants if you do the math, but there could be more based on if they're smaller grants that are awarded. So we're going to have more information. It was a PowerPoint. I'm going to get the PowerPoint in the next couple of days. I'm happy to send out to anybody. It's with all this information. And I'm happy to update you as we get more information. Any questions or?
Hey, Karen, do you know if the grant can be used to put in electric charging stations in our parking lots?
Oh, that is a really good question. I don't know, but that is a really good question. I don't think everything's been 100%. So that, I mean, that's outside of a structure, but that's part of your campus. I'm definitely
Right.
happy to ask that. They may not have the answer to that.
Yeah, if you could find out, that'd be great. I know we're starting to get requests for things like that. As more and more people are driving the little electric cars.
Good question.
I would tell you, as someone who's currently building buildings and looking at things like this, the odds that an energy efficient grant would cover a charging station, probably, I mean, you should ask, but I would tell you, probably not. Ameren's doing a ton of incentives though.
I was about to say that we're adding 2 to the museum and we're working with Ameren and there are incentives.
Yes.
Thanks, Karen. Obviously, there'll be more information and Karen is playing a little bit of David Winton this morning, who's not able to be here. And David is the person who will be able to help figure out a lot of those detailed questions as well. Thank you, Karen. Mindy?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy Hanukkah. I just want to take a few minutes to update everyone on Federation's strategic priorities. Hopefully you're aware of these. I know you've all used them when we've been in conversations about outcomes and about investments, applying for grants. We just went through a months-long process with a lot of input to refine these priorities. In 2017, Federation had a new strategic plan. The next year and a half, the board worked on developing priorities for each core commitment area. And we used them for 2 years. COVID was one of those years. But what we're finding is that the language wasn't always in line with how they were intended. And so after 2 years of using them, we just had this review process. So with our vice chair of strategic planning, vice chair of community impact, our community impact chairs, community impact committee, and finally the board of directors, we went through this process to refine them and update them and really approve what seems to make more sense in terms of how we're using them, how our community partners are using them, and where we find alignment. So I just wanted to run through those changes really quickly, because as many of you are going to be applying for community impact investments in January, it may look a little different. Anything that was removed wasn't completely removed. It was just incorporated either into another priority area or will be incorporated into evaluation. So I'm going to share my screen here. If everybody can see this. Great. So this is on our website. If you go to community, go to community impact and then click on core commitments. And then here are the different core commitment areas, and you can open it up and can see each of the priorities. So I just want to really quickly go through some that were changed so you all can understand when you see these in the coming months. So under our vibrancy area, we had 3 different lenses that we looked at. We had a stage of life, we had level of engagement, and then we had another lens which included attitude, knowledge, and behavior. We haven't found that to be valuable in terms of specific priority areas, but what we have found is those are valuable in terms of evaluation processes. So we've removed that lens of attitude, knowledge, and behavior, but we will include them in later evaluation processes. We also are adding to this area 2 strategies, which we talk about often and we include in evaluation, and we wanted to highlight them. One is the idea of promoting regional progress. And the other is the idea of creating a welcoming and inclusive community. We know many of our community partners are doing this. And so and it's, you know, obviously a strategy that Federation wants to support. So we've included those as strategies. The other item that was removed under low priorities, there was a priority of adults. And we found that that is kind of included in a lot of the other areas, including empty nesters or older adults or the level of engagement. So those are the changes that were made in that core commitment area. When we look at security and well-being and safety, we made a lot of changes here in terms of the language, but not in terms of how we are supporting and how we're offering different resources. The main change we made was, we used to call this first one elderly Jews at risk, and that is not in line with common language that's used. It's really older adults at risk, and even when we did our needs assessment, we called it older adults at risk. So we made that change to reflect the common language that's used. We removed the priority areas of access to care, inclusion, economic development, addiction, and abuse, because what we found was all of those are incorporated into a lot of the other areas, including safety and security. Access to care was something that we saw should be spread throughout all of these, and will be highlighted that way. And inclusion, the way it was laid out, wasn't specifically around disabilities or special needs. It was really focused on inclusion, feeling welcome in the community. So that is the strategy that I mentioned in the first area around vibrancy. And then finally, when we talk about Israel, the changes that we made here are really reflective of how we've been talking about it and how we have been supporting our community. So one is Israel education and Israel engagement were two separate priorities. And what we found is they almost always go hand in hand. You can't do one without the other. So we've included them under the high priority of Israel education and engagement. The other item that was removed is this theme of global Jewry, which what we found is it's hard to separate that out. When you have the title, this core commitment is strengthening connection to Israel and global Jewry. It's inherent in everything that we do around this core commitment area. It's about Jewish peoplehood. So that is woven into everything that we do related to this area. And then the last one is develop financial and human resources and infrastructure. And these priorities all stayed the same. There were no changes here. So I don't know if there are any questions. I just wanted to share that quickly. It was a long process, a lot of input, a lot of conversation. Really appreciate the fact that our lay leadership and our staff are reviewing this on an ongoing basis. While they might look like major changes, they really were just refining the language to reflect the work that we're actually doing and how we're aligned with the work that all of you are doing. So, any questions?
Oh, that's the fun stuff, getting to peel back the curtain a little and see the stuff that we all spend our time on. Yeah. Anyone?
So that one section is updated on the website. We have a guide to the priorities, which is a more detailed definition of each one. We're in the process of updating that. So you'll see those changes soon, and definitely it'll be updated in time for any spring applications. Thanks.
Hershey.
I know this is deep in the weeds, but if I was doing this myself, which I'm not, and obviously I'm super biased here, I would break up college students into multiple areas, and I would separate out, say, WashU students who are largely, they're awesome people, but they're often transient, and separate them out from the local college students who are from St. Louis, some of whom stay in St. Louis schools, and I see them more as sort of advanced high school students, and they should be in that box, but that's not for now.
So I appreciate that, Rabbi, and I think that that could probably be said for any of these categories. Within any of them, there's going to be multiple layers. And one of the things that we do is we take the priority areas and do a deeper needs assessment within each one. So if we were to do a needs assessment around college students, it would definitely have all of those different layers.
But Mindy could make the document 600 pages for all of them.
I don't think anybody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Sure not. The only other thing I would add is that in a conversation with David Winton yesterday, we spent a little bit of time talking about the expansion of Medicaid in the state and the need for us to get that information out as broadly as we can to both institutions and individuals because of the benefits that are available to them, but also because it really, it helps all of us if people are being taken care of as best as possible. And so it is possible that in 2 weeks, if we are gonna meet, and let's talk for a second about that, or soon after the first of the year, we will have someone come on to be able to talk about what Medicaid expansion really includes and is, why it's important to your organization if you work with older people or people at or near the poverty line at all. And then there will be a more detailed training for those who actually directly help people get their benefits and the kinds of things that you need to make sure that you check off or do or whatever. But we felt like it was a really important conversation. Almost everybody on this call right now has some connection to people who may be eligible. And if we can help people lead and have a better quality of life through the benefits that are already being provided out there, as many people as we can help in order to support them, keep them in their homes longer, whatever it is, we want to make sure that we do that with, I'm thinking particularly about synagogues and other frontline and first line organizations. So we're working through that. David's going to help find someone who can talk to this group at the right level so that you have the information you need and then can determine who on your staff, if it is something that you are deeper into, it can be directed towards that kind of a training. But that really brings up the question, we're scheduled again for the last time this year in 2 weeks. And by the way, that's our last scheduled meeting. So part of this is, we want to meet in 2 weeks, and how do we want to structure this moving into the new year? A couple months ago, we sent out a poll about, do we do it once a month? Do we still do it every week? Do we do it every other week? And of course, there was a lot of diversity of opinions that kind of coalesced around, I guess, every other week. But I'd really like some feedback from everybody because, as we have less of a crisis around us and as we have less specific topics, we jump on these calls and we talk for a couple minutes, usually like 20 to 30 minutes. And if this is useful, then we can continue to do it, but I'm interested in understanding how often feels right for you guys. Go ahead, Marion, you unmuted. I saw it.
Well, yeah. So I'm not sure that we are coming out of this situation anytime soon. I mean, we are just going backwards more than we're going forwards. And the drain on all of us, I think, is there and is not going to end anytime soon. And, I find these meetings helpful. I would still go for the every other week because I think issues are going to continue to come up. And I just think that we need the support from each other.
Others? You can do a thumbs up if you just agree. You don't have to say anything. So Marion, you're saying you're finding them helpful and you feel like we're probably sliding back into wherever we are. So every other week still makes sense to you. Is that what you're advocating for?
Right. I mean, okay. I'm personally starting to feel like I'm drowning a little bit. There's only so many virtual programs that you can do. We're still trying to figure out ways to get people back in the building safely, and still find that there's a lot of resistance. I'm obviously only speaking about our congregation, but sure, there's still resistance to coming back in person. And I just don't know where to go at this point. It's just been a very long time. For us, fortunately, it has not affected us financially, but at some point, I'm sure it will. And, these are just all issues that I'm sure weigh on all of us.
I saw a couple of thumbs up. We don't have to repeat each other. Does anybody have anything different to add or a different perspective? Because it's totally okay that people can see it differently.
I think what's most helpful is when Anna Marie puts in the email reminder that, this is the subject, like the topic of conversation, this is the, even if there's not going to be a subject and you're going to put it out for conversation for the group, even to know that this is going to be a meeting where we're going to open it up to the team to talk about what's on your minds.
Yeah.
It just helps prioritize whether this is a meeting that we need to be at, or if it's a meeting that we can pass.
So Jackie, I appreciate that. On the opposite side, for a while, we have been asking everyone for their thoughts about topics or things that they wanted to bring up, and no one ever responded. So we stopped asking. But is there like we said this from the beginning, this isn't a federation meeting for us to just dump stuff on you guys. This is for everyone. And if there's something that others have, we want, that's what we want to use this for. Should we be asking every week? Or are you guys just going to be like, when I get on, I'll remember it or talk about it?
Good point. I was thinking also, like, if there are things, what's most beneficial is when the Federation has presentations or topics that they want to facilitate or foster, I think. But I understand that that's not going to be every time we meet.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Ellen.
And I also think too, when the legislative session goes back in January, we're going to see a lot more from David Winton
Yeah.
about what's happening in our state. And I think that's going to become more and more important, given the direction based on the bills that were all pre-filed yesterday.
Which David
You
is
think
gonna
we're going
provide
backwards
up.
now, Marion? We're going way backwards in this state. So, yeah. So I agree. I think the every other week is critical. I know there are those of us that meet with David separately anyway, but I think that there are things that go on in our state capitol that impact all of us every single day. And so these things are good.
Thanks, Alan. And David is committed to being on here and talking to both share information, but get information from you guys. I know that we talk a lot about how great David is and he brings value, but he's expressed to us that there's a lot of value in getting feedback and hearing from you guys and the questions and the concerns or the things that you're seeing, because it allows him to be able to craft and shape how he responds and speaks to legislators with real world stuff, which is far better than theoretical, and it really does help him. So thank you around that. David's committed to being here. I did hear you say, Jackie, around topics, and I would say this, we've, in general, had you guys, if something comes up here that, everybody says, yeah, we could use that, we will go out and help find someone to talk about it. So, this is the time also, I guess, if there are specific topics or things that people are thinking about or worried about and that we think could be helpful to the group, let's talk about them. You can email me or Mindy or Karen or Greg at any time, but if you have thoughts now, we'll happily start to put stuff together. We want this to be a benefit and useful for you guys.
So Brian, at one point we talked about shared resources and collaborations.
Yeah.
And I would love to see us do some future work on that to kind of dig in, whether it's the insurance purchasing that we do, whether it's HR resources, whether, I don't know how we can, if there's a way to kind of formalize some of those things where maybe we can't afford an HR person, but if we combine with Chabad and Crown Center and somebody else, okay, we can get one person that four of us can use, kind of thing. And are there ways to foster those kinds of collaborations?
For sure. Thank you for that. Rosalie, were you, I didn't know if you were going to say something before. Anyone else? Thank you, Ellen. Other thoughts?
I'm just wondering if there's a way also on occasion, maybe twice per, I was just going to say semester, you all aren't, I'm like thinking semester, but like maybe every like quarterly or something, that we tap into some of the JPRO work like that Marcy is really connected to, and bringing like Nanette in to talk about governance, or I don't know, whatever hot topics are on our minds as CEOs, from a high level.
We absolutely can. I think it would be a question of what do we need, right? Like we as a group would just come up with a topic and we can talk to Marcy about that, but we have to help direct.
I'll just say, Jackie, to that point, which is really great, and it's something I will share with Marcy, is that board working with our board leadership, working with you all on those kinds of topics is a priority for us for the Millstone Leadership Initiative. So let's continue to have that conversation. I think there's a lot that we can be doing as part of the Millstone Leadership Initiatives, which includes JPRO and the board work around governance, like that.
Like, and maybe it's just like we don't have time, right? Time is precious. So maybe it's like hot topics in 30 minutes. And someone has like a paper from Board Source or something that's been really integral to helping them. And maybe they just put it out there for conversation, like a pre-read and conversation or something that things that are on our minds. And maybe we have to be better at communicating what those issues are. But I'm not thinking like a 2-hour session, but just like really 20, 30 minutes with Nanette could be really helpful for all of us, just helpful reminders, et cetera.
Karen, what partially what I'm hearing from her is that we have all these professional groups, right? We bring together marketing professionals and HR and maybe we actually talk about a CEO professionals group, and it is a half an hour quarterly or whatever it is, but okay. Other thoughts or feedback? It's so people, Nikki keeps putting the thumbs up. So every other week, we're going to talk about some specific topics, but there is value in just us getting together and being able to talk with one another and hear from one another. So we're going to continue it. David Witten, absolutely continue. I'm going to make myself, Karen, Mindy, Greg open. If you have other thoughts or questions or ideas, do not hesitate at any time, right? Marion, I'll get to you 1 second, right? Email, text, whatever, it doesn't have to be on this call. If there's something that comes up, we can absolutely try and work to either connect you with someone within or outside the community or find someone to come in and talk about it. Because sometimes these things come up, not when we're on this call and you think, oh God, I'd love to hear everybody's thought about that. We can try that. Yeah, Marion.
I wonder if there's a way that we could take advantage of more cost sharing among us, whether it's supplies or facility maintenance, snow removal, any of that kind of stuff. Technology costs, any of that.
So this is now the second time on this call that this has come up, and this is actually something that we have been talking about for a little bit, but I guess this could be a really involved discussion. And I'll send an email out, but maybe we set aside a separate time just to talk about this and explore what it means at a pretty high level, because ordering pens is really different than sharing an HR person. There's a benefit to both of those, right? Our copier contracts, our whatever all those things are. I think probably what we need to do is just sit down and put that list of menu items together and talk about that a little more. So Merritt, I appreciate that you and a couple people said that. I'd like to send a message out to the larger group and set something up specifically around that. Thank you. I think it's a really great idea. Let's face it, resources are always an issue, right? And if we can do better by working together and leverage, our dollars further, everybody wins. Any other, Greg likes that. Hey, Chaim, yeah.
So a little bit of a different perspective, possibly. Just getting together has been awesome. Even without a specific agenda, just talking. I know for myself, I'm like St. Charles focused.
Yeah.
And just to kind of get at it and hear what's going on, different perspectives about anything is really great. That's what when I've been able to join, that's what I've been getting out of it. So it's really cool just getting together.
I'm hearing that really strongly from everyone. So let me ask a slightly different question, because I think part of what makes this work actually is Zoom. So let's say that we could all get together in January and do it once a month or something. I have a feeling that it might not work as effectively. We only have 9 people on here today, but would we even get that? So is there something about Zoom in this case that is really helpful to doing this? You and St. Charles are absolutely saying yes, right? Yeah. Others, Rosalie. And then
I think that Zoom is good. I think it just lets you just jump on and do it, and see everybody. I agree. It's just a nice, having a bad week or whatever, just to jump on and see everyone certainly helps. And I love the idea of furthering the conversation on sharing something. There has to be something out there that we can collaborate on. So I think it's very helpful. I'm not so pro get together. Maybe once a quarter,
Yeah,
we can promote it and make sure that everyone has a fair amount of time
sure. Yeah.
to change their, to get their schedule, but not Thursdays. It's supposed to be my day off.
Got it. Okay, okay. Anita, did you want to add something too?
No, I just agree with Rosalie, and I do agree with Marion's request too. I think anytime we can share ideas and co do things together, like I think it's a positive.
For sure.
And I
And
do
that's
think
what,
that Zoom is getting on to a meeting like this just quickly, I think is way easier for some of us
for
that
sure.
just never get to actually get to the door to get out of the building.
Yep. Yep. I appreciate that. So Zoom is working for a lot of really good reasons, not the least of which is it allows you to be efficient with your time. But if and when the world does open up again and people are getting together, whether it's quarterly or twice a year, would be really nice also. We're going to
Totally
do
agree.
And I would say, guys, really, if you have things that you want to bring up to the group, please put them out there, either in advance or on the chat as the chat is blowing up right now or whatever it is, because I really do see this. I get a lot of value from this too, because I know everybody here is working just as hard as I am. And just like there are those days where you can't, or you need the pickup, or just to bring something up that you're dealing with that other people maybe will have a perspective on and look at it the same way that you do. I find it really helpful and I really appreciate it. And I'm saying it like that because my wife is going to have a baby sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and I won't be here for about a month. And so I'll miss all of you. The scheduled meetings will still happen, but I've really appreciated over this year all of you and those of you who aren't on right now too. Really, it's been really helpful to get to know you all, but also as like just a touchstone, a group to be able to come to and see familiar faces and know that there's a perspective and that people understand things and can share. It's been really helpful. So thank you all. So we'll keep the meeting on 2 weeks from now. If David can get someone to talk about the Medicaid expansion piece, we'll have that. Otherwise, we'll do it after the first of the year, but we will check in. And I will have Anna Marie send out appointments, because our last one is in 2 weeks, for the first 4 months or so of the year. I think we keep kind of doing them in chunks, hoping that, right, eventually something's going to change in the world and that we'll be able to adjust. So we'll do it for some amount of time and adjust and talk again as we have. And we'll make sure that David continues to be available. And yeah, any other thoughts, Mindy or Karen, Scott, did you have anything to add, or anyone else?
Actually, Brian, I just had a comment. Yesterday, we sadly lost a St. Louis County police officer in the line of duty. And the St. Louis County Police Department is one of our strongest partners in helping us secure our community. They do a lot of work with us at our synagogues, special events, and just from an intelligence standpoint. But it's a very sad thing when we lose one of those officers, sadder in the line of duty. And I just ask that the group's thoughts and prayers be with that family.
Thank you. Jackie, I'm happy to grab drinks if you set it up, for sure. Does anybody else have anything that they want to talk about or share or bring up? Or was Hanukkah's going well? All right, Landa, I understand that there was a very nice event in St. Charles this weekend.
Indeed, we got over 400 people.
It's amazing, outstanding. All right. Thank you guys so much for everything. I hope you and your families are doing really well. Greg, you can wrap up.
No, the pro forma, happy early Shabbos, enjoy the rest of Hanukkah. And if you have a suggestion, know that you can say, I want to make this suggestion that we talk about it, but I don't want it attributed to me. We won't attribute sources. So if you want to bring up a topic, but it's sensitive, know that we're not going to say, hey, Ellen said we should talk about this, right? So know that we will, change the names to protect the innocent, as Joe Friday used to say. So great to see you all. See you in 2 weeks.